Right, good evening ladies and gentlemen, it's Anthony Carpenter here at the Cambridgeshire Collection and it's about to close in about 20 minutes. Now I'm just going to make a very quick video on all things local planning because I've been going through a number of quite old local plans from the mid to late 20th century because I wanted to get a feel for what councillors and officials were coming up with kind of in the days gone by. Now let's start with this one. It's the City Council, this is the Architecture and Planning Department's Open Space and Outdoor Recreation Plan. And what's really interesting about that, well, it's kind of a report with a series of maps in, is they come to the conclusion that there is a lot of open space and the public does not have access to it. The really striking statistic they came up with was that 76% of all of the sports playing fields that were within the city limits were used by and owned by the colleges. And what they also found out was that a lot of the playing fields were actually underused. And so the big finding from that report is the conclusion on whether some of that land could be turned over to the public and turned into public parks. This is an interesting one, he says, opening up a blank document. The Romsey Local Plan in 1984. Several of you who live in that part of town, it's really worth reading and looking at the challenges that they dealt with at a time when we were in the middle of the recession in the early 1980s. Now, I must remember not to look down. I also looked at the 1991 local plan study by Colin Buchanan and Partners. And what's really interesting on this one is they look in depth at transport. Now, we may think that, we're coming up with all of the new stuff with the light rail and everything. They dealt with light rail in this, they had dealt with busways, they dealt with ring roads, cycling, you name it, and they had done it. Congestion charging, another one. It's been considered by the Greater Cambridge Partnership. They've actually done a study for it. It'll be interesting to see how 1991 compares with basically 30 years since, i.e. today. This one, it kind of takes me back to my GCSE days, actually, and when I started sixth form. Interim local plan. Now, what's really striking with this one is I think this was the last local plan, and several of you will recognise Peter Studdert, who actually signs this off. He was the director of planning here, and it covers so many different topics, whereas today's local plan is primarily on housing. The economic plan is separate, the climate change report is separate, the transport's all separate. Well, this deals with built environment, housing, community services, recreation and leisure, higher and further education, employment, shopping, tourism, utility services, transport, and getting things done, and the schedule of proposals. It's got a lot in there. Now, inevitably, borough councils in those days did not have much power, they did not have much funding either. So in particular with transport, you have a lot of policies that basically state, we will encourage the Highways Authority, or we will encourage blah, blah, blah. And that's quite sad to see. And it just goes to show in a way that actually for things like this, for a city like Cambridge, we do need a single council. And people have been trying for, best part of 125 years and still ain't got there. Anyway, we live in interesting times. I'll see you in the next video.